Right. Hi, friends. Bethany here to guide you through a 30-minute yin yoga practice that is going to focus around the neck and the shoulders and the arms. This is a place within my body that I find I've got a lot of tension, whether it's from repetitive movement that I've done, playing with my dog, uh, knitting, my own yoga practice. And also right now, when I'm filming this, the it's springtime in New England, so the temperatures are fluctuating a lot, and I'm finding that cold to warm to cold just lends for that feeling of, oh, I'm cold right now. So I hope that this practice can lend for a little bit of ease that you might be experiencing within, say, tension patterns within your neck or your arms and shoulders. This portion of our body is a really more mobile portion, and depending on what we do for our jobs or activities, it can lend for susceptibility to injury or repetitive stress, and even contracture, just depending on what we do. So, um, no real need for props. I would just say get yourself into a comfortable, cozy space within your practice area. I often like to unfold a blanket for myself. So let's get started. We'll start in a comfortable seated position. You can do this on the floor, or if the hips are a little bit cranky today, perhaps you sit up onto a chair or a block or a cushion. So we'll take about 2 minutes here, just setting the tone for our practice today. If it feels comfortable, beginning to close the eyes. You might start with a few rounds of full breath before settling back to its natural rhythm. And see if for today you can start to just establish a relaxed intention around your experience. And perhaps you chose to practice because you are experiencing some tension or achiness within the neck or the shoulders. And if that's the case, just see if you can observe where the boundary of this sensation is felt. Notice if you're habitually engaging or shrugging within the shoulders. And just explore what it feels like to relax through the arms completely, letting them rest into the lap. And you might start to sense a heaviness there. And just continue to scan through the body, noticing whatever else is present for you today. Whether it's a feeling tone of a mood or other sensations within the body. Inviting this brief period of time that we have just in a moment of pause and awareness. And slowly beginning to blink the eyes open for just a moment and know that at any point in our practice, you can have the eyes closed within postures or just have a softer gaze. So we'll start to focus into the neck now, slowly starting to release your left ear towards your left shoulder. Come to that first edge of feeling sensation through the right side of the neck. And before settling into stillness, perhaps just some gentle movement. So explore what it feels like to have the head slightly back or slightly forward. You might play with the angle of the chin here as well. And resist the urge to draw that left shoulder up in the direction of the ear. So we're just focusing on maintaining this longer spine and beginning to slowly and gradually and gently stress into the right side of the neck. And so you might feel this into the jaw and perhaps into the collarbone, down across the top of the shoulder. And as we settle into this first posture, I'll just go over the main principles of the practice of Yin Yoga. So the first is to bring our bodies into general shapes with different intended target areas. Coming to that first edge of resistance where we feel just a mild to moderate, almost bitter sensation. We're relaxing into the muscles where we feel that sensation, and then committing to hold in relative stillness with time. You might tent those right fingertips down towards the floor if sensation has already started to dissipate within the neck, or you might even thread that right arm behind the back, reaching for your left waist or even the left elbow crease. So it's this exploration of mildly stressing the joints, the cartilage, and the denser fibrotic tissues of our fascia. That one for the decrease of tension. And we'll be here for just a few more rounds of breath. And then take your time to begin to release. If you had taken a different arm variation with that right arm, just replacing it back to the lap and slowly starting to lift the head back up in space. You might feel a little bit of tenderness or fragility. You could either pause in stillness or just slowly rotate the head from shoulder to shoulder, or even invite a little bit of extension within the neck, softly flexing into the neck, or even just drawing some circles in the air with the chin. And just observing whatever has started to change upon that first side that we've approached within this practice in the upper body. And then bringing the head back through center, adjusting your seat if needed, and then slowly starting to draw that right ear now towards the right shoulder. So becoming aware of how each side can feel quite different. We might hold patterns of tension differently. We might have a lessened range of motion, whether that's due to tension or compression based on variability that occurs within our skeletal structure. And though we can strive to achieve balance within the energetic system, it's really quite natural to have asymmetry within the skeletal structure. And so as you continue to pay attention, just assessing the level of stress that's felt in those target areas, seeing where they start to show up within your body, and then just choosing if it makes sense to adjust with different variations. You might even find that placing your right hand just to the outside of the left side of the face might be an appropriate level of stress for you. And just be sure as you pause in postures that you don't continue to hold if you start to experience any numbness or tingling, any sharp or extremely painful sensation. Those are all signs that the body is telling you to release from the pose. It might require completely backing out and waiting until the next pose is called, or perhaps it just requires changing your alignment. We'll be here for just a few more cycles of breath. And then again, nice and slow, start to release the left hand. If it was in a different position, slowly start to shift the head back upright and either pausing in stillness or just inviting those soft, mindful movements, the sways, the up and down movement. Just getting curious for what it feels like to exit the posture. And if you were sitting up on anything, just taking a moment to remove what you were sitting on. If you were on a chair, just taking a moment to perhaps pause the video and make your way down to the ground. So our next posture is going to bring our shoulders into extension and stress down the length of the arms. This might even be felt into the elbows as well. So sitting with the hands propped back behind you, just a slight angle of the spine here. And you could explore having the fingertips pointing towards your body, away from you, or even pointing back behind you. Placing the feet out in front of you, bend into your right knee and cross your right ankle onto the left thigh, and then just slowly begin to bend into that left knee, placing the foot on the floor. And then just become aware of sensation across the front of the shoulders. You might even sense the shoulder blades squeezing towards one another. Observe what's felt within the biceps or the elbows, perhaps even into the wrists. And you could always be in a more upright position, or you might start to explore sliding your glutes towards that left heel so that you're just creating more extension into the shoulders themselves. The head could be tilted forward or might be tilted back in space. Perhaps it's just in a more neutral position. And you might even start to explore what does it feel like to bring the arms closer towards one another behind the back or further away. So what lends for that just right amount of stress to be felt down the length of the arms, again, those elbow joints, and how does it feel across the chest, perhaps? You might even be feeling this through the right outer hip. And we'll just be here for about 30 more seconds. Just becoming witness to change of sensation in the body. how you respond to it, not only physiologically, but perhaps within the mind. Mm, With some light gripping into the core, start to slide the left leg straight. And without using the hands here, just start to lift the chest, uncrossing that right leg and taking a moment to pause here. Just let the arms kind of hang heavy here, or you might just softly start to move into the arms a little bit here. This is definitely one of those kind of funkier postures where it might almost feel a little bit alarming as to what you're experiencing, perhaps through the biceps, the elbows, or the forearms. And I don't mean alarming in a sense of like, oh my gosh, this is so scary. More like, oh, this is kind of strange. So we'll do that one more time. This time the left knee would be bent. And again, just 2 minutes on each side, and know that you can always back out if needed. Please really be an advocate for your body here. So bending into that right knee, placing the foot on the floor, and then just exploring here again, coming into the sitting swan, and perhaps just arranging the arms a little bit differently here. Again, just observing what the edge is for you in each of the postures. Maintaining that mild range of sensation. Noting if you feel gripping or engagement within the muscles, or even a change to the breath. And those might be just little subtle reminders that perhaps you're just a bit too deep within the posture. We're aiming for sensation to be felt while we're in the pose, and then upon release, that starts to slowly begin to dissipate. So if you do feel any discomfort or lingering sensation, much like if you had exercised the muscle beyond the scope of this practice, it just could be that sign that you were in too deep. So just begin that slow, gradual process of releasing, coming back upright to that seated posture, uncrossing the left leg, and then just exploring what it feels like to pause here, to observe, to bring any little movement into the body. Making your way to a hands and knees position. We'll move through a few rounds of cat-cow, and I invite you to explore taking a different arm position. So either spinning the fingertips away from um, the top of the mat, or even spinning the fingertips all the way to point towards the knees. And then just moving through a few rounds of cat-cow here. Spinning your fingertips to face the top of your mat, and then just flipping your right hand over so that you're resting on the back of the hand. Begin to spin your fingertips in and towards the back, and just apply a light pressure to the top of the hand into the floor. So getting just a bit of a stretch through the top of the wrist and into the forearm. Just taking a few cycles of breath here. All right, and gently releasing that right hand, we'll take it to the other side. So flip your hand over so that you're resting on the top of the hand. Spin those fingertips in and then towards the back. And it's okay if there's a bend into the elbow here. Again, we're just aiming to feel sensation through the top of the wrist and into the forearm. And then just a few more cycles of breath here. All right, so from our hands and knees position, we'll start to get into the other underside of the arm. This might be felt within the tricep or in through the side, outside of your shoulder blade, or even into the armpit as well. So from this hands and knees position, start to walk your hands forward in space and start to explore drawing the chest down in the direction of the floor, finding that first stopping point here. For some, it may feel better to rest the forehead onto a block or any type of prop that can provide for less flexion into the shoulders here. Your forearms might be on the floor. It's okay to have a bend into the elbows as well. They might be angled in towards one another. And if the downward pressure of the hips down to the shoulders is a bit too much, you could always shift the hips back a bit as if you were going to move into a child's pose. So there is this sense of almost a vertical like thigh bone here. And this might be felt like a bit of tugging across the front of the belly or into the spine as well. As always, find an alignment that works for you, whether it's the arms closer together or wider apart. That helps you to access these different regions of the shoulders in as mild a way as possible. And to increase the extension in the shoulders, if that sensation starts to diminish, you could place the hands up onto blocks perhaps, or even a piece of furniture. And we'll be here for about 1 more minute. As we invite this stillness into the body, observe how even in quietude and stillness, there's still a lot of dynamism as well. The change of sensation within the body, and the change of perception within the mind, and just bearing witness to whatever starts to arise within your practice. All right, slowly start to lift the chest, lean up onto the forearms. Begin to slide the legs back behind you so that you make your way down onto your belly. You can turn the elbows out and stack the palms or drape the arms down alongside the body. Just take a moment to pause here. And just becoming notice and becoming aware of whatever you're feeling still within the shoulders or the neck or the arms. So one last posture before our Shavasana. This is aiming to get into the outside line of the shoulders here. So start to roll over to the right side of the body and outstretch your right arm away from you. So it's about perpendicular to your shoulder and your body. And then just slowly start to roll towards the belly to a point where you feel sensation with that in the outside of that arm. So you could take a prop to rest the forehead here. You might use that left forearm to support underneath the forehead as well. And if you're finding that you're just unable to explore sensation through that outer arm, you could also cross the right arm in front of the left, creating almost this X-like shape as well. And then another option would be to come into a prone eagle wrap. So propping the triceps up onto block or just on the floor and starting to explore what it feels like within the outside of the shoulders and even into the shoulder blades as well. And the head might just gently nestle into the arms here. And I realized that was a lot of options and variations that you could play with. So if you need a moment to pause the video to set that up for you, know that that's an option to do as well, or to just hold in the posture longer once you find that level of sensation that works for your shoulders here. And so it's through these mild, longer held stresses applied to the body that lend for a greater endurance. So you could say that that greater endurance is a stronger quality to those tissues. There's some ability to reduce some of that contracture that occurs as we age and through our habitual movements. And so looking for a greater sense of mobility and ease to be felt within the body. And just slowly starting to release from this pose, taking a moment to rest here on our abdomen, draping the arms down alongside the body. You can rest onto one side of the face here. And then setting this up for the other side. So rolling to the left side of the body, thread that left arm underneath or away from you. Slowly start to explore rolling onto the outside of that arm. So you might not be all the way down onto the floor itself. You might still have that right hip lifted up in space a bit. And then just see where you could help to support the body, whether it's your forearm underneath your forehead or starting to explore that X shape with the arms or the eagle wrap. And I had demonstrated before having the arms propped up onto a block, and that's just an option to play around with. It may or may not be accessible or feel appropriate for you. So this is really a practice about learning about your alignment, your unique skeletal structure, and how that really will start to influence your abilities to have these different alignments and different postures. And that can really start to bring about a sense of freedom. Some postures may never be accessible for the body, but it doesn't mean that we can't still generate that same sense of stress that we're looking to apply within these different areas of the body. And just a few more cycles of breath here. All right, and then again, just gradually, slowly starting to release and making your way over onto your back for just a brief Shavasana. We are at that 30-minute mark, so if all you've got is just a few moments to rest on your back, or perhaps you come to sit up for a closing brief minute of meditation, that's always an option. You could also start to take some of the other 30-minute yin practices that focus on the spine as well as the hips. So I thank you so much for sharing your time and sharing your practice. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.